In the year 883, outside a starving city in eastern China, a rebel army began building machines, hundreds of them. Giant stone mortars standing in rows, pounding day and night. The soldiers called their camp the mill. But there was no grain left in eastern China, and what went into those machines was still alive. The man who commanded them was not born a monster. He was a scholar, a poet, a man who failed one exam too many. His name was Huang Chao, the man who dug the grave of China's golden age. And the most shocking part of his story isn't even the machines. The 9th century, the Tang dynasty. For centuries its name had meant the golden age of China. Poetry, silk, the most dazzling empire on earth. But the gold was flaking. A century earlier, a rebellion had gutted the empire, and it never truly healed. Court eunuchs installed emperors and murdered them. Warlords taxed the provinces to the bone. Droughts came, locusts came. The taxes kept coming. In the Far East, in the salt country of Shandong, one family had learned to live outside the law. Salt was an imperial monopoly. Smuggling it was punished by death. The Huang family had smuggled it for generations and grown rich. Their boy could ride, he could shoot a bow, and he could write. Legend says he was composing poems about chrysanthemums at the age of 5, but money could not buy the one thing the family wanted: respect. So they sent their brilliant son to Chang'an to take the imperial examination. The exam was the empire's sacred promise. Any man, however humble, could rise through pure merit, in theory. In practice, the great aristocratic clans had dominated the lists for generations. A salt smuggler's son stood almost no chance. Huang Chao failed. He came back and failed again, and again. Somewhere in those years of humiliation, the scholar in him died. The story goes that before leaving Chang'an forever, he wrote one last poem about chrysanthemums, the flower that blooms last in the cold after every other flower is dead. When autumn comes, on the 9th month's 8th day, my flower will bloom, and every other flower will die. A fragrance will storm the sky over Chang'an, and the whole city will wear golden armor. Chang'an laughed at one more failed examinee. Chang'an should have read the poem more carefully. The 870s. Drought scorched the east. Floods followed. Locusts followed the floods. The court's answer was to collect the taxes early. Villages ate bark and grass, and the officials hid the famine from the throne. Good news only, all the way up. In 875, a fellow salt smuggler named Wang Xianji raised the banner of revolt. Huang Chao joined him with 8 of his kinsmen. These were not peasants with pitchforks. The salt gangs were organized crime, armed convoys, secret routes, hard men. Thousands flocked to them. For 3 years they burned across a dozen prefectures. The court could not catch them, so it tried to buy them. The eunuchs offered Wang Xianji an official post, a pardon for him alone, nothing for his men. Wang wavered. Huang Chao's answer is written in the histories. He beat his own commander bloody with his fists. 5,000 men followed you, and you would sell them for a robe? The deal collapsed. In 878, imperial troops cornered Wang Xianji and took his head. The survivors needed a leader. They chose the poet. Huang Chao gave himself a new title, the Storm Heaven General. The failed scholar now commanded an army, and heaven itself was on notice. Imperial armies blocked every road north, so the Storm Heaven General did the unthinkable. He turned south. His army marched hundreds of miles through mountains and malaria, aimed at the richest port on the planet, Guangzhou, the ocean gate of the Silk Road. Arab and Persian ships crowded its harbor. Its foreign quarter held a fortune in silk, pearls and spice, and over 100,000 foreign residents by the merchant's own records. Huang Chao offered the court a bargain: make him governor of Guangzhou and the rebellion ends. The court answered with an empty palace sinecure, an insult dressed as a pardon. In the autumn of 879, the Storm Heaven General's army came out of the hills. Guangzhou fell. Chinese chronicles say almost nothing about what happened next. The Arab merchants who traded there recorded everything. By the Arab merchants' count, 120,000 foreigners were slaughtered, along with untold numbers of the city's own people. Some accounts say 200,000. They wrote that he burned the warehouses and cut down the mulberry groves. On the docks of Guangzhou, the Silk Road itself was bleeding. Then the south took its revenge. Plague swept the rebel camp. By the chronicles, 3 or 4 men in every 10 died rotting in the heat. The survivors demanded one direction: north, home, and this time, Chang'an. 880. The rebel flood rolled north, 600,000 strong by the count of its terrified enemies, smugglers, deserters, farmers with nothing left to lose. City after city opened its gates. The eastern capital, Luoyang, surrendered without a fight. Between Huang Chao and Chang'an stood one last wall, Tang Pass, the gate of the capital, held by the emperor's elite divine strategy army. Elite, on paper. Rich men's sons had bribed their names onto its rolls to collect the pay. Ordered to the wall, they marched out weeping. The gate of the capital held for 2 days. Then the Storm Heaven General walked through it. That night, the teenage son of heaven slipped out of his own palace with a few hundred riders and ran for Sichuan. It was the same road another emperor had fled down a century before, when An Lushan came. The Tang had learned nothing. January 881. Huang Chao entered Chang'an in a golden carriage. Behind him, his veterans rode in silk and gilded armor. The whole city wearing golden armor. The failed student's poem had come true, word by word. His herald proclaimed to the terrified crowds, "The Yellow King rises for the people. Not like the House of Li, he does not despise you. Live without fear." Rebel soldiers pressed coins into the hands of the poor. For a few days, Chang'an dared to believe it. On the 16th of January, in the Hall of Great Brilliance, the salt smuggler's son was crowned emperor of a new dynasty, Great Qi. The men who had failed him were now his subjects. The examination was over. Huang Chao was grading it. It took days for the dream to rot. His army had lived on plunder for 1,000 miles, and Chang'an was the plunder. The rebels gave it a name, the Panning, sifting the city for gold house by house. Mansions stripped bare, women dragged away, officials hunted through the wards. And for the great families, the clans whose names had filled the golden lists for generations, there was no panning, only erasure. A poet who lived through it wrote the epitaph: "The imperial treasury burned to brocade ash, the avenue of heaven paved with the trampled bones of nobles." In the spring of 881, a Tang counterattack broke into the city. The people of Chang'an cheered the returning army in the streets. The imperial troops stopped to loot. That night, Huang Chao came back, and then he turned on the city that had cheered for the Tang. He loosed his army on the people of Chang'an. 80,000 died, one official history records. Blood ran deep enough, it says, to wade through. The chronicles remember the massacre by a name, almost tender. They called it washing the city. The liberator of Chang'an was gone. Only the monster was left. But an emperor who rules a corpse rules nothing. Beyond the walls, the Tang was still alive, and the noose was tightening. Loyalist armies ringed the capital and choked off the grain. In the markets of Great Qi, food grew scarcer than silver. 882. His commander on the eastern approaches, a man named Zhu Wen, who had risen from nothing in Huang Chao's ranks, read the wind and defected to the Tang. The grateful court gave the traitor a new name, Guangzhou, Holy Loyal. Remember him, he is not finished with this story. Then the court unsheathed its last sword. Li Keyong, a one-eyed Turkic warlord, 27 years old, leading the deadliest cavalry on the steppe. His horsemen dressed all in black. The terrified rebels gave them a name, the Crow Army. In 883, the Crows shattered the rebel host outside Chang'an. Huang Chao understood the city was lost, so he made sure it was lost to everyone. He fired the palaces of the greatest city on earth on his way out. The city of the Golden Age, already bled white by war, burned behind him. Chang'an, the city that had laughed at his poems, would never be the capital of a golden age again. His retreating army still needed to eat, and the land was scraped to the bone, so it surrounded the city of Chenzhou. And now, the machines. For nearly 300 days the siege ground on, and the mortars of the mill fort pounded day and night. The old book of Tang records it in one line. The rebels took captives and ate them, several thousand, every day. Later historians would wonder if the court's chroniclers exaggerated the horror. The chronicles themselves never blink. The man who had once wept over an examination paper was feeding a province to his army. 884. Zhu Wen, wholly loyal now, and the one-eyed Crow King closed in from two sides. At the Wangmandu crossing, the rebel host broke apart. Huang Chao's oldest comrade, Chang'an, surrendered to the Tang. Huang Chao fled east with less than 1,000 men, back toward the salt country of Shandong. He was running home. June 884. Wolf Tiger Valley, in the shadow of Mount Tai. A few dozen men left, the hunters hours behind. The last blade came from his own blood, his nephew, Lin Yan. One history says Lin Yan took his uncle's head to buy his own life. Another says Huang Chao held out the sword and asked him to swing it. Either way, the nephew rode for the Tang lines, carrying the head of the Storm Heaven General. He never collected the reward. Tang's soldiers cut him down on the road and delivered both heads together. In Chengdu, the Son of Heaven held a victory ceremony over the head of the failed examinee. Among the prisoners knelt Huang Chao's concubines, daughters of noble houses. The emperor demanded, "Your families were fed by this dynasty. Why did you follow a bandit?" The woman kneeling at their head looked up. The state had 1,000,000 soldiers. It lost its capital and ran to Sichuan. The Son of Heaven could not stop him, and you ask why a woman did not? The emperor had no answer. He had them all executed in the market. The executioners offered the women strong wine, a small mercy against the blade. They drank and wept. She alone refused. She died sober, in silence. 23 years later, in 907, the Tang dynasty, 289 years old, was formally put to death. The man who forced the last emperor off the throne and took it for himself was Zhu Wen. Wholly loyal, Huang Chao's own lieutenant. The empire failed the scholar. The scholar's soldier buried the empire. And every autumn since, when the 9th month comes, the chrysanthemums still bloom last, after every other flower has died. Welcome to The Dragon Files. Subscribe for more.